Alright, start the same way.
Yeah, I mean, we can.
Welcome back to another episode of Tech Tips. My name is Sean Rube. You're Chris Tripp. This is that Megan person with the hair.
I prefer being introduced.
Oh, really?
Welcome back to another episode of Tech Tips. My name is Sean Rube.
And I'm Chris Tripp with neoRhino IT Solutions. I said it last time and it flowed so well, and then I was like, I'm pretty sure I interrupted Sean, so I'm going to just try not to do that.
This is Chris Tripp with
neoRhino
Rhino
IT Solutions.
IT.
One day I'm going to break it down per syllable.
Right? Hello and welcome back to another episode of Tech Tips. My name is Sean Rube.
And I'm Chris Tripp with neoRhino IT Solutions.
And today we're joined by Megan Burns-Copper, our Senior Compliance Associate.
Welcome back, Megan.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Hello.
And so today we're here to talk about the Texas HB 300. And so Megan, can you tell us a little bit about what the Texas HB 300 is?
Sure. So that is a Texas-specific piece of legislation. So we've got, it stands for House Bill 300. It was passed in 2011 that introduced tougher privacy protections and a little more stringent requirements than HIPAA. So essentially it's HIPAA for Texas, just more HIPAA-y than HIPAA.
Oh, and so with the more HIPAA-y than HIPAA, that's hard to say.
Yep. I was surprised with myself.
What does that entail?
So essentially it redefines a couple things. So you've got, if you remember, covered entities from HIPAA. The definition of covered entity in HB 300 is expanded. So if you remember, covered entities were just the healthcare providers, the healthcare clearinghouses, people that were involved with healthcare directly, were covered under HIPAA. In Texas, essentially that definition has been expanded to include any entity or individual that possesses, obtains, assembles, collects, analyzes, evaluates, stores, or transmits PHI in any form. So a lot of companies, vendors, people that were not considered covered entities before under HIPAA, they are now under HB 300.
So that even includes like the business associates. Those guys are technically in Texas now going to be covered entities rather than BAs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're going to be directly responsible for handling and ensuring that they have the safeguards and the regulations and the policies in place to be HIPAA compliant.
Okay.
So, lawyers, researchers, MSPs, ISPs, Bob down the street that manages your website for you that holds PHI, he's now a covered entity under Texas HB 300.
Okay. That's good to know.
So Texas HB 300 obviously only affects people within Texas. Do other states have similar bills that have been passed as well?
Yeah, so Texas is actually one of the most, I guess, strict.
When it comes to state-specific?
Right, yes. So I know that California has a similar bill. I think New Jersey is the other state that's kind of like, we're like in the top three, essentially.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if there are any states that don't have any state-specific, similar like this. I mean, every state has kind of like their own health code and that sort of thing.
So we did a video on HIPAA, kind of learned the general gist of everything, and so this HB 300 seems like a Texas-specific thing. So what are the differences between HIPAA and HB 300?
There are a few. So to name a couple, we've got expansions of training requirements.
Okay.
There are new restrictions on how to disclose ePHI. There's increased penalties. There's more regulation and sort of requirements revolving breach and breach notifications. And there are a couple kind of like, I don't want to say small things, but and they're pretty major when it comes to clinics. But as an example, patient requests. If a patient requests a disclosure of their PHI, of their medical records.
Mhm.
Under HIPAA, a clinic or a covered entity must respond after 30 days or within 30 days. And in Texas, that time limit is shortened to 15.
Oh, wow.
So you've got a much shorter time period to respond to patient requests for their information.
So this is where that more strict policies or more strict of a law comes into play. Is
Right.
You have less time to do what you would normally be able to do within double the time in HIPAA.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do the consequences and fines differ from standard HIPAA?
They do. So you've got, we kind of went a little bit over the specific fines for HIPAA. To just kind of call back to that for a minute, negligence was, if you were found negligent per violation, you could be fined $1,000 under HIPAA. Under Texas HB 300, that's up to $5,000 per violation.
Wow.
And that's just for just being negligent, just not, even if it's ignorance, just not implementing those safeguards.
Right.
Willful neglect under HIPAA, it was kind of on that 30-day versus if you get it, if you don't get it done or if you don't fix it within 30 days, it would be different. So you got $10,000 or $50,000 per violation. Under Texas HB 300, that willful neglect is now $25,000 per violation.
Wow.
And that's just kind of overall. So, but the kind of the addition that HB 300 introduces is this idea of financial gain. So in addition to the negligence and the willful neglect, tiers, if you will, HB 300 introduces intentional violation for financial gain. And if you're found, not just willfully neglecting, but you're trying to, get something from, the exposure or whatever of patient data, that's $250,000 per violation.
Wow.
So they're really not playing around.
Yeah. So with the intentional violation, is that an individual or is that company wide when it's a fine?
It all really just depends on the violation itself.
Okay.
So if it's just one doctor trying to, do something kind of, in the shadows or whatnot, then, that one doctor would be, it depends on the investigation and what's found,
Gotcha.
So investigations do happen, like full-fledged, they go into the facility and maybe pull all the records and find out what's happening within that facility and then either ding the company or the specific individual who's violating.
Yeah, and at that point it would be sort of to the mercy of the normal legal process, if you will. And the state attorney general is involved at that point.
That's the Texas state attorney, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
So then it kind of goes from there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. So does the protection of your environment and staying compliant, does that differ very much from HIPAA? Is there any additional things that we should know about the Texas HB 300?
So safeguards and sort of the general backbone is largely the same. There are pretty critical pieces, like I mentioned before, some really important changes to be aware of. So really that most of that involves the training requirements. So as an example, the HIPAA does not require a certain time frame after employment for you to be trained. HB 300 comes in and says you have to be trained within 60 days of your hire date.
Now, training is a certification process per se. I know we did it for neoRhino. Kind of watched a few videos and went through on how to handle PHI properly. Is that the only form of training, or is there additional sets? Like you can build your own from the way your company works, or how exactly does that work?
So HB 300 actually mandates that per role or per department, training is tailored to fit.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of companies will, kind of structure their own training for, whatever that role or department.
With how they're dealing with a PHI to
Right.
make sure that they're staying HIPAA compliant.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that is a requirement by the law. There's something to kind of just be careful about in general, especially if there's anybody that's watching this because they want to be HIPAA compliant or they're kind of starting their journey to understanding this. There really isn't such a thing as HIPAA certified. And any company or training vendor that may provide that, there are perks to being able to have kind of a seal of compliance on your website or whatnot, but there is no such thing by the law as being certified for HIPAA. HIPAA is a continued process that requires yearly risk assessments and sort of a whole cycle of identification of issues, addressing them, implementing the new solutions, and then starting over, looking at your workflow, addressing the issues and whatnot. So it's a continued cycle. It's never going to be, certified, I'm done, I don't have to worry about it for the next 5 years. That's how you get the OCR breathing down your neck.
Right.
Okay.
When it comes to training within Texas, though, that training not only does it need to be tailored to people's individual responsibilities and roles, like you were mentioning, but the training must be done biannually. HIPAA does not require sort of a time frame schedule.
Okay.
Essentially, HIPAA says training must be done if the subject matter changes. So if there's
Okay.
like sort of a big new law or addition to HIPAA, everybody's got to get brought back up to speed.
So then HB 300 says that I don't care about any changes. Every 6 months, y'all better re-up on this knowledge so that you all can make sure that y'all aren't out
Right.
of the know.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Essentially, it's sort of a legislative enforcement of what already exists in HIPAA for having sort of continued and scheduled security awareness training. But HIPAA does not define, how you must do that or the time frame within which you have to do that. It just says you need to have this security awareness training.
Okay.
So Texas HB 300 comes in and says, well, that's going to be done because you're doing it 2 times a year,
Yeah, right.
or we're gonna gig you. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
And
go ahead.
employee verification signatures. It's another big deal with training.
Oh.
It's another big deal with sort of in general with HIPAA is that, logging and sort of proof of doing these items, and HB 300 requires that training is accompanied with signatures.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and so with that, I think we've pretty much covered the basics of the Texas HB 300. Do you guys want to add anything else or have any questions?
Something to keep in mind is this is all very general overview information.
Definitely.
So, really, it is a rabbit hole of requirements, and sort of once you feel like you've got a good grasp of this, something else kind of pops out and you have to follow this. It can be a handful. So, really, this is not a comprehensive overview in any form.
Right.
Yeah.
This is
It's
just
just saying,
just
hey,
general.
this is
top
out here.
level bullet point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the link to learn everything that you need to know.
If you definitely need more information, check the links below. We'll be sure to provide them for you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, or consult with a professional organization. Don't do anything, without the consultation of a lawyer, that sort of thing.
Especially because this is dealing with law specifically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and nothing that we can say can be substituted for the professional advice of legal counsel.
Yeah, and if feds
so.
come in, you can't just show them this YouTube video and say, hey,
I followed these
I watched
guys.
this, they said to do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Tech Tips. I'm Sean Root.
And I'm Chris Tripp,
And I'm Megan Burns-Copper.
and we're with neoRhino IT Solutions.
Yep. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below or go to neoRhino.com/techtips. Thank you again.
And we will be leaving the links down at the bottom of the video for HB 300 and also HIPAA, just in case you need to know the full law. This is the Texas version of that law. It's the next iteration or an addition to it. So feel free to leave comments and replies and click those links to learn more.
Thank you.